will the debut of Formula E's Gen 3 car be a disaster? That question itself was a disaster right there. But obviously, a lot of things going wrong, right? The batteries were not in place. The teams haven't had enough testing time because of the issues with the batteries. Hankook has come out with is a new tire supplier. Obviously, the tires are new. The teams have to learn about that. And the timeline, even though we thought was huge at the start of the year when the Formula E season ended very, very,
Yep.
very, very early, and we thought there's gonna be so much time before season 9 and the Gen 3 cars are gonna be ready. That's not
Yeah.
the case. The Formula E season starts in about a month from talking whether or not we still don't know what the sporting regulations are. We still don't know whether we are going to particular destinations or not. The tickets are not exactly on sale for the first few races, and by that I mean obviously in particular the
Yeah.
race in Hyderabad, India. So there's a lot going on. What is going to happen? What is going to happen?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. We are, as you said, we are still talking about the season and the sporting regulations, and there was a what do you call it, fast charging test of some sorts just past month, and thing coming up from Tuesday onwards, yeah, from 13th,
Tuesday, yeah.
and we don't know a whole lot more. So I don't know. I think it's, again, it goes back to what how Formula E started, because I believe they didn't exactly it for even the whole season. They were running it from race to race, and right now they have the budget and the backing, but they don't have the technical side of it. And I'm pretty sure as development goes on, as things go on, they might change the technical regulations mid-season. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
And the
and the
sporting
sporting regulations. I mean,
regulations.
I'm pretty confident about it because that has happened in sports before, but that is how uh, Formula E goes about it as well.
Formula E has operated.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a dive into sort of the unknown for Formula E, but again, it's typically Formula E to have that situation.
That is true. That is true. And somehow manufacturers are still coming to Formula E
Man, it's
to go racing,
electric. It's
which
the
is
future. It's the place to be.
don't get me started. Don't get me started on that. But no, it's very I think the downfall of this all of this has been so again the teams have said that the new cars are great. It's just a matter of getting the tech right and getting it on track and safe and all of that, which is a huge part. And obviously it poses a really nice technical challenge for all the engineering teams back at base and on track. And I think the technical director of Jaguar did an interview recently with the race. I might be wrong as to who was interviewed, but they laid out what the challenges had been with the Formula E car. And obviously, like I said, the battery, the tires, and then the drivers having to adapt to a new style of driving because essentially now you have regen on both
Yeah.
axles and not just on one axle. Now, most of the issues with Formula E have been driven by the battery and the management tech around that and the new motors and everything, right? So that powertrain has been the issue for Formula E. But I really think the issue, like, I just think that Formula E is in such a place right now because they try to change too many things too soon all at once.
Yep.
They changed the tires, the car design itself, the parts and everything. And I feel if they had done it gradually, they could have bought themselves not more time, but more leeway in terms of what car they had to run, the next season. Let's say if they still had Gen 2 car, but they said, okay, we're going to introduce, the new powertrain or the new battery system in season 9. They could have reverted back to the old battery system, in my opinion, and run that for a few races and bought themselves more time for the new battery. Or they could have just done the tires for a season and so on and so forth. So I really think that doing it all at once, I mean, the hype they created was great. It worked really well for the hype, but it's been so quiet for the last 6 months. Like, coming out of Formula E itself, like all the news coming out is by more sport media outlets who are going and interviewing people working in the different teams and not
Formula E.
exactly from Formula E.
And I mean, it's interesting as well because they had the plans for. I mean, we know how Formula E works. We know how Formula E works. We so far this is our third generation of cars, right? So we know how they work in steps of generation of cars, and pretty sure they would have been working on the third gen for 2 or 3 years.
I think it started in 2020, so half 2 years
I mean, and
now.
so this work is not done by teams who are balancing current season, the next season, and the future seasons as such. This work is done by Formula E and its sort of sole technical
Technical
partners who
partners.
are the
Yeah.
sole suppliers, right? So you would imagine that it was much further ahead than it is right now, and we only got to know about the car and the technology, I think, February last year.
In
Yeah, the
April?
car was launched in April, but the technical
Yeah.
details of it came out in March or February, something around, like somewhere around the time we interviewed Jack, right? So
Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
I mean, I don't know the timeline for these things. I'm not an engineer, but as a business person, I would imagine it to be better planned.
Yeah, yeah. It's yeah. I mean, Formula E, like even Jack said, like, what is Formula E exactly now? Uh, and here is the question, and here is another aspect of the issue that they're going to run into, in my opinion, moving forward. I think it's been talked about a little bit previously, but here's the next issue. Obviously, by Gen 4 at least, if not Gen 3, right? By Gen 4, they will be driving with more power, not just generating more
Yeah,
power, but they'll be driving with more power, driving the cars with more power, right? So, will it be feasible for them to run on city streets?
yeah,
Because the more power you have, because even now they up the amount of power the car will be delivering at the rear wheels, right? I think it's gone up by 100 kilowatt. So, and it's the first time that they broke the 200 mile per hour barrier in a Formula E car. So the question that comes from it is it safe to run on city streets now, given that you're hitting such speeds, or given that you're hitting such accelerations, and the end of straight speed might be different? Is it time, or will there be a time when Formula E will have to really assess whether racing on city streets is feasible versus and weigh in whether or not they want to go racing on actual street circuits, because the cars are so much more and maybe not as nimble and agile as they were.
yeah. And I mean, it's a great point, and I think when you think about the added speed of the cars and added, you know, and you think about circuits like Rome and one of those very twisty, bendy circuits.
Do we saw what happened in the rain in the US
Yeah,
this year. Like there was a turn one pile up, and it's like what, six cars involved, or three, four or six cars involved, or something like that. So imagine doing that with more
yeah,
power.
yeah, yeah. It's a great conflict where Formula E is. Again, it's a relatively young series, just and with this new set of regulations, as you said, just bringing it all out at once, it gives them a real challenge. Just gradual steps, changing one thing at a time, as you said, should be it could be a better option. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we'll see. I mean, the feedback from that race article that I referred to earlier, the feedback on the tires has been pretty good. But it's again, it's the powertrain side of things causing the issues for the teams, because we also heard about a few accidents during the testing that happened earlier this year. A couple drivers got injured. The cars broke down. The cars did something erratic and that sort of things. So clearly, still a long way to go. Hopefully, they're able to put on a show with the new cars at their full potential, starting at the very start of the season. And hopefully the sporting regulations will sort them out as the season goes on. And we talked about the optics of recharge pit stop previously, and the more I
Yeah.
think about it, and I've said this before, obviously, the more I don't really
Yeah, yeah.
want them to do a recharge pit stop, as exciting as it might